What's up, Conroe? Welcome to a brand new edition of Nerd Thug Radio, right here on 104.5, 106.1, the sister stations, and streaming worldwide at irlonestar.com. As always, you should check out the Facebook page, facebook.com/Nerd Thug Radio. That's the mothership. That's where the magic happens. And you are hanging out right here on this Thursday edition of Nerd Thug Sports. I'm Corey DLG, and with me as usual is little brother Nico, coming at you via Anchor. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right. Still living, still hiding away in my little hidey hole, waiting for the world to get together. I need to go vote.
Yeah, get your vote on, man. Roughly 40% of Harris County has now voted, according to registrars. Early voting is sprinting.
Yeah, I mean, it's still here. Do it, and you got time.
Yeah, and
it doesn't take very long.
I was listening to the Buzz this morning, and Rod Ryan and the new girl, Tessa, whatever her name is. Apparently, they both voted yesterday, and they were in and out within 40 minutes.
My mom said she was out. She was in and out in less than 15. She said I walked in and there was nobody there. I voted and then I left.
That's a good feeling. I went day one, North Harris County, right at the edge there, the border. I brought headphones because I had no idea what to expect. I listened to about 4 or 5 songs while standing in line outside in a parking lot. Then I got inside. I listened to like 2 or 3 more songs, and then they basically tell you from this point on you can't have your cell phones running and all that. Mm-hmm. So it was probably about 30 minutes total, 40 minutes, somewhere in that range. It wasn't bad, but it was weird to like stand in line, literally wrapped around a parking lot. That was unexpected. Voting usually, I don't know the nice way to say this, but usually I could just walk in and vote. So it was weird that on day one of early voting that there was a line. But it was easy. It was great. It's important to vote. Everyone do that. Make sure your voice is heard. However you feel, it's just important to be voting, just to speak your piece. And at least then you know you've done your part.
All right. Participation. It's part of what makes the thing work.
It really is. Maybe this is where we get participation trophies from.
You should just get participation trophies for voting and nothing else.
I mean, I got a sticker.
Yeah, but like, how cool would it be if you got like a little placard?
That would be pretty baller. This would be placard worthy. Maybe we could like start charging a fee that just goes to printing your placard for you when you vote.
Yeah, like if you don't want it, you don't have to pay for it. But if you do,
so like if you do, when you register to vote, you pay like $5. And then when you go vote, they're like, "Oh, we'll print this for you right now. We see you got the placard edition of the voting license."
They're like, "Here you go. Here's your tiny placard."
Oh no, I want the big one.
Oh, $10.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But it's going right. It's going on the wall, and then every election you vote in, you get a new one. There'd be somebody who buys those.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's going to be like, and here's my collection. Yeah, I voted in all of the elections in the past.
Right, because then there would be those people who've been like, I voted in 22 presidential elections. Here are all of my plaques.
22? How old are you?
They'd be 88 plus 18, so 106. Listen, I'm going to live to be 200, so that's a lie. Like 55 max.
Oh, God.
All right, so it is Nerd Thug Sports. I've been avoiding it, but we've got to talk about it. The Texans lost over the weekend to Jacksonville.
To
Tennessee, I'm sorry. And we did it in disappointing fashion. 2 fronts. First of all, no one wants to have the conversation about how bad our defense is. Our defense is terrible. Derrick Henry had 200 yards against us, including an overtime run. It was technically a reception, but it was a catch behind the line of scrimmage. And it was a catch and run for like 48 yards, the first play of overtime.
Jeez.
We're bad on defense. We are a bad defensive team.
It's so sad because we used to be so good.
Right. We don't control the edge, and we don't stop the pass. And people are running all over us. All over us.
Defense is important.
the game-winning touchdown play. So in overtime, obviously, a touchdown ends the game, right? It was a wildcat play with the quarterback lined up completely on the outside edge of the field. And literally before they hike it, we're pointing at people and we don't know who to cover. We have 2 timeouts and we don't even you. If you don't know what's going on in the formation, you call timeout. Like that's just 101.
Again, us just being bad at timeouts, I guess.
Just not understanding the flow of the game, and which brings me to the other big reason they lost. Okay, so get this: we went up 1 point with 7 minutes to go. 9 minutes to go.
Right.
We go up 1 point with 9 minutes to go. We then score another touchdown. And so at that point, it's 36-29 with 1:50 to play. The extra point play is untimed. If we go for 1, we're up 8 points, which means if we can't stop them from scoring, we still have a chance to stop them from the 2-point conversion. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
We choose to go for 2, and we don't get it. So we were trying to go up by 9, which means that no matter what, they would have had to score twice in 1:50. If we'd gotten the 2-point conversion, the game is over. However, we failed to get it, so now we're only up 7 still. They tie with 14 seconds left. They win the overtime coin toss. They win the game.
Dang.
The 2 points.
Truly a tragedy.
The choice on the 2-point play, I'm not even going to get into the play call necessarily. I just don't like the idea that we even go for it there.
It's understandable because well, if we get this, they literally can't beat us. But also, they have to put in. We have to, you have to either stop them twice, or you either have to stop them twice or make the 2 points. So depends on who you want to rely on there.
Yeah, you are putting the ball in the best players on the best player on your team is Deshaun Watson. So you are putting the game on him basically, which I don't disagree with. I do disagree with situationally going for 2 in that scenario still. If you go up by 8 points, you get 2 chances to stop them if they score. If they score, they still have to get the 2-point conversion at that point.
Right, and there's no but if our defense is so bad that we can't stop them at all, maybe you want to just try and go for the 2-point and pretty much seal the game.
And I do think that was what they were thinking. I just hate the call. I just honestly don't understand how that can be the decision there. Just because with 1:50 left, put all the pressure on them. You know what I mean? Make them make all of the choices.
Right.
And see if they fold. Because Tennessee is not a great team. Although Mike Vrabel is making all the right moves. He did another Bill Belichick clock-stealing move against us. If you remember, I've been pointing out these different times when Mike Vrabel has literally just stolen time by manipulating the rules.
Mm-hmm.
It was a 2nd and 2 scenario during that drive where we score with 1:50 left. There's 4 on the clock. There's 4 minutes on the clock. So with 2nd and 2, we could take 40 seconds off, probably get a first down, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Which is all in our favor because we're already up. We're up 30-29 anyway. So what he does is he runs a 12th man onto the field before we hike it.
Nice.
So the penalty automatically makes it a first down again, but it stops the clock most importantly. So he concedes the first down, but he saves 40 seconds on the clock.
Yeah, which is a pretty smart move.
He scoring the game-tying touchdown with 20 seconds left. So
that would have mattered.
Exactly. Mike
Vrabel,
he clearly is the guy who was paying attention every time Bill Belichick did something. Like
He's
Bill
smart.
Belichick, all these assistant coaches have gone on to other places, and they aren't doing these things. They aren't succeeding. Romeo Crennel, for example, Charlie Weiss. I mean, all the list is. I think there's been about Josh McDaniels. I believe there's been 5 head coaches from his system, and they're all unemployed. Well, they're all no longer head coaches, except Romeo Crennel is back as a head coach now. And where it comes from is they all lose their jobs because they don't know the little details. But here's Mike Vrabel, who played through the Bill Belichick era, and then was a coach here in Houston. So he learned how to be a coach under Bill O'Brien, who was also another Bill Belichick disciple. But he also
who is no longer employed by us.
But it's very obvious that Vrabel was taking notes on the weird stuff that Belichick did that worked.
Like stealing time.
This is about the 4th or 5th time he's done it in the last 2 years. It's smart. Like, it's good. It's good football. It reminds me of Jason Kidd was a coach for the Nets, I believe, his first year. The Knicks or the Nets, one of the two. Yeah, I think it was the Nets. And he was out of timeouts, but he wanted the clock stoppage so he could draw up a play. So he was holding a Coca-Cola, and he told one of his players to bump into him, and he spilled it on the court.
Nice.
So they had to stop the game to clean the drink off the floor. And while the clock was stopped, he drew up a play for his team.
Wow, what a play.
That's that kind of like heady veteran behind the scenes stuff. Like, listen.
you're like, dang, I really need this. Smart.
Like, look, the refs knew what happened.
Drops
Like,
Coca-Cola.
they got on to him about it. They were like, Jason, come on, man, no drinks on the court. You know the rules. You know better than that.
And he was like, I'm sorry.
I got excited. I wasn't thinking. My fault. Here's the play, guys. It's one of those things where everyone knows what you're doing, but it's slick enough that everyone's like, come on,
man. It's like, we know exactly what you planned, but man, that doesn't seem like an honest mistake to normal people.
Well, it definitely not, because when he personally sent a guy onto the field, they took the penalty, and when the guy came off the field, he yelled at the guy. So, like, there was a level of, like, gamesmanship to it.
Yeah, I mean, like, he's slick, but not that slick.
So Mike Vrabel might have been the coach that we shouldn't have let get away. Is kind of how I feel about that. But so here's the thing: if we'd have won that game against Tennessee, we'd be 2-4. Tennessee would be 4-1. We'd be.
Wait, Tennessee 5-0?
Tennessee is 5-0, but they have a lot of their schedule tightens up where they're going to have to play makeup games and stuff like that.
Oh,
so they're not going to stay 5-0. And that's what I was saying earlier. Was like, look, if we can get into these games and win these division games, listen, no one's going to, like, every team is going to lose 6 or 7, especially in our conference, in our division. Our division is going to have 6 or 7 losses anyway. So.
Yeah, no one else in our division is really like super great, but honestly, we're shaping up to be one of the worst, which is not a good feeling.
And it's clearly that it's clear that it was coaching that was holding it back. Deshaun Watson has had back-to-back great games. I think it's something like 7 or 8 touchdowns in 2 games. Will Fuller is back to scoring a touchdown in every game. Brandon Cooks, I think, caught 8 passes in a row in the first game without Bill O'Brien. Like, I mean, we're just playing better football now. But we needed the win. We needed to beat Tennessee. You got to beat the division rivals in order to stay in the thing. And so that part of it was upsetting. Yeah, I'm not ready to say the season's over, but we can't afford to lose another in-division game at all.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, we can't lose again in the division. or we're screwed. We're going to jump out to a break. When we come back, we got more Nerd Thug Sports coming your way. We're going to talk a little Cowboys, and we even have a Conor McGregor sighting. We'll be right back.
The Adventure Begins Comics, Games, and More is open on 1488 at 525 Woodland Square Boulevard. With comics, games, and everything nerd-related, The Adventure Begins is the one-stop nerd shop. On Saturdays, they alternate between having Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, and coming up, they also have cosplay crafting and trivia nights and BYOB nights. They're currently offering a 10% discount for limited time, which will be valid for as long as you grab your books every month.
Hey, Conroe, this is Corey DLG of Nerd Thug Radio, hanging out here, just enjoying my quarantine time at home, and I hope everyone else is doing the same, social distancing and minding their manners and listening to the orders while we get all this health crisis straightened out and get this pandemic under control. I hope everyone's doing their part to flatten the curve, but doing their part also means supporting small businesses. Local businesses here in Conroe, restaurants, things of that nature that have been able to stay open, they require the support of their community. So takeout is a good option to do. So reach out to those places, order some takeout food if you can afford it and if it's reasonable. I'm not asking anyone to risk their health, but the community has always relied on itself to support itself. And this is one of those times where, as Conroe, we can stand up together and take care of small businesses and entrepreneurs who've been taking care of us this whole time, helping Montgomery County grow into one of the fastest growing counties in all of America. Thank you very much, and stay safe, and stay tuned for more Nerd Thug Radio.
This is Rudy Tomjanovich, and welcome to Nerd Thug Radio.
Welcome back to Nerd Thug Sports right here on 104.5, 106.1, the sister stations. Yes, there's a lot going on right now. We're in the middle of the football season. This is my favorite time of the year. Amazon Prime aired one of the football games Monday night. Like, this is what I like, when there's so much sports that they literally are sticking in weird places. This is
on Amazon Prime. This is on Hulu.
That's how I like to do my sports.
I get as many screens in front of me as possible, and then I don't pay attention to any of the games.
I just soak them all in like osmosis. It was the Chiefs-Bills Monday night early game, and it was a little messy. It was a little weird. The first half was close, and then the Chiefs just pulled away in the third quarter, which has kind of become their signature. There are some games where the Chiefs start smoking hot, and those are the games where they score 50, 60 points.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are other games where they go into halftime 14-10 or 20-13, and then they score 2 or 3 touchdowns in the third quarter, and you look up and it's 40-13, and you're like, well, I guess the game's over.
It's like, well, I mean, I try.
And in full fairness, it was raining fairly heavily early on in that game, which prevented both sides from really throwing the ball.
I just like to imagine they just play like that one meme where it's like, you had me in the first half, I'll give you that.
Yeah, that's sort of what the Chiefs have become, is like, oh, that was kind of close for a minute, let me turn it on. Very like regular season NBA, where the best team in the league loses like 3 games in a row for no reason, and it's because everyone just kind of checked out mentally.
Yeah, then they come back in and you're like, oh, there they are.
Yeah, found them. Also, I just think the Chiefs like to kind of go in and kind of act like a little bit like a boxer, where they just they're testing the limits and testing the range. And then they're like, okay, nope, I know what to do to beat you now. Here's 3 touchdowns.
And it's like, oh, my bones, they hurt.
Yeah, here's the matchup we wanted to see. Here's 3 touchdowns. So one thing about that game that kind of stuck out to me, though, was that Josh Allen, at times, is a really bad quarterback. There's no nice way to say it. Josh Allen of the Bills, when he's bad, he's really bad. I think at one point he was like 3 of 10 for 12 yards.
Oof.
Like, it's not what you want to see out of a starting quarterback in the NFL.
It's pretty awful.
It really was. And like, The game was close. Both teams were still in it. Like, defenses were playing good. Running games were all anyone had. And that was kind of what they were having to do, was just kind of stick and move. But you just knew, like, Josh Allen wasn't going to change the game for anybody.
Anything, he wasn't helping.
Yeah. If anything, he was hurting.
Right.
Desperately hurting. And so you gotta wonder how much longer the Bills are gonna ride out that era. Well, like Nick Foles, he got the Chicago Bears a win finally, but that means that Mitchell Trubisky is probably done in Chicago.
Oh, poor Mitchell Trubisky. He just never got there.
He was never consistent, and he would have a good game, and then he would follow with like 3 bad games. And then he would have a good game, and you'd be like, see, he's figuring it out. You just got to give him time and be patient. And then he would have 2 or 3 bad games, and you'd be like, okay, well, maybe he needs more time, and we need to be more patient. Like, it doesn't... For Mitchell Trubisky, the weird thing was, like, the switch never stayed clicked.
Right, yeah. Like, he'd be great, and they're like, see, look, this is what we wanted. And then it's so awful that you're like, is it even worth trying anymore?
Right. And the Bears... For them, the frustration has got to be real because
their defense was so solid.
Right. They are a top-tier defense. They have a good running back. They have a decent receiving core. They're literally a quality quarterback away from being a relevant franchise. And yet here they are.
Here they are.
Also, staying on young quarterbacks before we get into the Dak Prescott situation. The Tuiasa Saposo era has begun in Miami, much to the chagrin of Fitzpatrick. He had been starting, he'd been playing okay, and then he got benched in the first half of the Miami game. I think he threw 2 or 3 interceptions early on, and they said, nah, it's time to go to the kid.
Time to go to the kid.
And I believe they wound up pulling out a win. So good for him. But that was it was a surprise to see him this early, I think.
I don't think so.
I mean, he is the number 1 overall pick, so it's hard to... You knew you were going to see him at some point this season.
That's just what happens when you take a number 1. It's like you just want to see him at least perform.
Yeah, but they were still in games. They were still competitive. They were still winning. So, like, this really felt like the first...
Like, let's test him out run.
Yeah, it just felt like the first time that the Miami was dealing with any sort of adversity. And so to immediately bail on the quarterback, it basically kind of tells me, like, they were looking for any reason. Instead of saying, like, let's wait till week 8 or 9, let's get halfway through the season and let's start to phase him in. To me, I guess internally there must have been some discussions where they were like, hey, man, first time we can reasonably put this kid in, we're getting him in.
Yeah, maybe.
Which has got to be a frustrating thing when you're out there playing good football, but it is what it is. Overall, this year's been a weird year for quarterbacks, and that brings us kind of right back around to the Dak Prescott situation. First of all, Mike McCarthy, the players are coming forward. How do I want to? Okay, yeah, we'll do it this way. This is what we'll do first. Okay, the players are coming forward and they're talking about how the coaching staff doesn't make adjustments at halftime, and how the coaching staff is wrong about what they're predicting the other teams will be doing early in the game. And so they're essentially saying the coaching staff is getting out-coached and isn't prepared. Now, keep in mind, this is the coaching staff put together by Mike McCarthy that Aaron Rodgers complained about regularly the last couple of years of his career in Green Bay.
Mm-hmm.
So, while I don't think specifically it's the exact same complaint of, like, these guys don't know what they're doing at all, Aaron Rodgers wasn't happy with Mike McCarthy either.
Right, and let's not be quick to forget that Aaron Rodgers went from like a mediocre season to one of the best seasons in his career.
Correct. I believe it was a 6-10 year when they fired Mike McCarthy Then the very next year under the rookie head coach, they go 13-3.
Right.
You're absolutely right, and that's the total buy-in from Aaron Rodgers, who actually is saying right now this year this is the best he's ever felt physically at this point in a season. So things are going well in Green Bay. I kind of think that Mike McCarthy might be a bad head coach, but I already thought that. So I'm trying hard not to just
say I told you so, but you definitely said so.
No, like I'm comfortable with I told you so. I'm trying not to just immediately lead to obviously he's a bad coach. Like I want it. It's been 6 games. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
6 games on a new team. I don't want to immediately be like, well, obviously he doesn't know what he's doing. But that's literally what the Dallas Cowboy players are saying.
It's what the Dallas Cowboys are saying. It's clear that's what was happening with Aaron Rodgers.
You got to wonder now, like, what was he doing getting the second job? Like, how did he even get the second job? And it makes you think back to during his press conference. Apparently, early in the press conference, when Jerry Jones announced that they hired Mike McCarthy, he says in the meeting when we were talking, Mike McCarthy said that he watched every snap of the 2019 season. So one of the reporters asked Mike McCarthy about it. He says, hey, you guys mentioned that you watched every snap of the 2019 season. What are some things you've already noticed or picked up on that you're ready to either change or embrace or whatever? You know what I'm saying? Like it was a fair, insightful question based on the information given.
Mm-hmm.
To which Mike McCarthy then replied, well, I have a slight confession to make. I did tell Jerry that I watched every play of the 2019 season, but I said that because I really wanted the job.
Ooh, not what you want to say immediately following that question.
There was some laughter at the time, which kind of gives leeway to say, oh, clearly he was joking. He didn't really mean that. But he also didn't answer the question. And he also, in a joke, admitted that he lied in the job interview.
Answer the question.
My gut is that Mike McCarthy is not a good head coach.
I'm in agreement.
But he does have a Super Bowl ring, so according to Tony Dungy, he should be treated with the utmost respect.
Right, that's so relevant. Remember that one time you got carried because your team was so good?
Yeah. Remember that one time when one of the greatest quarterbacks in the NFL history was your quarterback, and so you won the Super Bowl?
Oh, weird. Isn't it weird that also, like, the season you left, he did better than has? Weird.
So here's my opinion on stuff like that. I think you can tell if you have a good head coach or not within the first year.
I think so, too.
And I think it goes to guys like Sean Payton, who was first year in New Orleans. They won 10 games. They went 10-6.
I don't even know the coach's name for Green Bay.
Yeah, I don't either, honestly. But he's one of the young kids, and he's one of those types. He's one of the hot young coordinator types. But 13-3 last year, and this year I think they're undefeated so far.
Yeah, so clearly he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, so nothing's sneaking up on this kid versus Mike McCarthy, who the only thing that doesn't sneak up on Mike McCarthy is food because he eats it. That was a fat joke.
Understandable.
Yeah, I'm starting to really think that Mike McCarthy may not be a good head coach.
I'm really starting to think this isn't what we want to be.
Well, like the Jets head coach. The Jets went and got a head coach, and it's been 3 years, 2 years, whatever it's been. And it's been really bad.
Yeah.
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 You can tell pretty much you get one season, and if at the end of that season you haven't turned things around and figured things out, like
especially if like they leave a location and they get somebody new, because like Green Bay is such a fun example because it's like look how awful and then well they're doing, and it's like, oh, what changed? Oh, their head coach, weird.
Right? Yeah, and then yes, and I think you could also do it the other way, where what was New Orleans the year before Sean Payton came in? They were a 6-10 team. They were bad. So what did he do? He spent an entire offseason changing as much of the roster as possible. And they actually at the time made a comment on, like, he overhauled something like 85% of the roster on that first season. Bringing in guys like Drew Brees, drafting Reggie Bush, cutting and trading players all over the place. And, like, he put together, like a team of it was broken toys from other teams. Like, they're cutting their guys and they're getting signed in New Orleans kind of a deal. Like, maybe he's not the top 33 linebacker in New York, but he could be a top 3 linebacker in New Orleans. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And they put together a ragtag team those first couple years until they could build a core themselves. But they were aggressively changing the roster over because they knew they needed to get better. And it was reflected in the record. The first season, I believe they went 10-6, then they go 9-7, and then Drew Brees becomes the Drew Brees of legend, basically. And I think he wins something like 48 games over his next 4 seasons, kind of a thing.
Whoa.
And I just think it's incredibly obvious. In that first season, you can tell how obvious it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's something to watch for, I think, for the Texans as they start going through and looking for a new head coach and all of that. Whoever it is they wind up hiring is going to need to be somebody who has an immediate impact on the roster and on the team. We're going to go ahead and get into the Adventure Begins, Comics, Games, and more. And then when we come back, we're going to talk Conor McGregor, and we're also still going to talk Dak Prescott.
The Adventure Begins, Comics, Games, and more is open and at full operating hours. You can come on inside. They do have table space available. You do have to wear a mask if you're going to come inside. But if you want to stay a little bit more safe, they still do have curbside and delivery options available. They have events running back up again. Friday, October 23rd at 7 p.m. is the Star Wars X-Wing Miniatures Casual Meetup. Saturday, October 24th from 2 to 4 is the Pokemon Casual Meetup. Saturday, the 24th, from 6 to 10 is the Warhammer and Tabletop Warhammer meetups. And finally, Sunday, October 25th, is the Adult Adventurers League. There are a limited number of spots, so don't hesitate to sign up. Check out the Facebook page and website for more details. And they're still looking for more Dungeon Masters if you are so inclined.
Oh, are you inclined?
No, I'm really bad at it.
I'm declined.
I'm declined.
All right, we're going to jump out to a break. When we come back, we got more Nerd Thug Radio coming your way.
The Adventure Begins, Comics, Games, and More is open on 1488 at 525 Woodland Square Boulevard. With comics, games, and everything nerd-related, The Adventure Begins is the one-stop nerd shop. On Saturdays, they alternate between having Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, and coming up, they also have cosplay crafting and trivia nights and BYOB nights. They're currently offering a 10% discount for limited time, which will be valid for as long as you grab your books every month.
Hey, Conroe, this is Corey DLG of Nerd Thug Radio, hanging out here, just enjoying my quarantine time at home, and I hope everyone else is doing the same, social distancing and minding their manners and listening to the orders while we get all this health crisis straightened out and get this pandemic under control. I hope everyone's doing their part to flatten the curve, but doing their part also means supporting small businesses. Local businesses here in Conroe, restaurants, things of that nature that have been able to stay open, they require the support of their community. So takeout is a good option to do. So reach out to those places, order some takeout food if you can afford it and if it's reasonable. I'm not asking anyone to risk their health, but the community has always relied on itself to support itself. And this is one of those times where, as Conroe, we can stand up together and take care of small businesses and entrepreneurs who've been taking care of us this whole time, helping Montgomery County grow into one of the fastest growing counties in all of America. Thank you very much, and stay safe, and stay tuned for more Nerd Thug Radio.
Hi, this is Kevin Smith, former Dallas Cowboy, Texas A&M Aggie as well, and I want to say what's up to Nerd Thug Radio.
And welcome back to Nerd Thug Sports right here on 104.5, 106.1, the sister stations. And as always, check out Facebook.com/Nerd Thug Radio for all the magic. Cosplay of the Day is back, and all sorts of other fun stuff is happening there. Make sure to visit The Adventure Begins on November 28th, where we got the Digimon card game going on. We're going to be hanging out, having a good time. First event of 2020. We're finally getting out there and wearing our spacesuits and all that. We're excited.
Took us 11 months till we finally did it.
Well, it took me a long time to build my suit out of duct tape and sandwich bags, but I'm ready.
Understandable.
So not only is Mike McCarthy a bad head coach, but the Dallas Cowboys are still dealing with just the reality of the roster they've assembled. Dak Prescott is done for the season now with the dislocated ankle and some broken bones in it and around it. It's going to take some rehabbing. That's not a fun rehab. Also, though, Ezekiel Elliott, who they spent a lot of money on 2 years ago, not doing great. He had back-to-back fumbles this week. But something that I wanted to kind of touch on is Dak Prescott, before he got hurt, there were a lot of people praising his numbers. The Cowboys were only 2-4, though. He had something like 400-yard games and all these touchdowns and all that, but they weren't winning.
Yeah, and it's clear he's not like a bad quarterback, but it's like his stats don't matter.
I don't know that I even take that walk with you, but go on.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, it takes every fiber of my being to say that. But like, stats don't matter if you don't win.
Well, and here's the other part that really is kind of confusing about it: is as bad as they were still in first place in their division, because their division is even worse.
Somehow.
It's the Giants, it's the Washington football team, and the Philadelphia Eagles, who 3 years ago won a Super Bowl and then have just promised themselves to never win again.
They said, you know what that was? A fluke.
No, honestly, I think it was one of those things that are like, dear Lord, if you let me win this Super Bowl, you don't care what happens after that. Like, you can do whatever you want. I don't even care. I just want to win this Super Bowl.
And then they're like, okay.
Yeah. They're going to spend the next decade awful, and the city of Philadelphia won't care. They'll be like,
no, yeah, they're like,
magic.
They're like, we got our one, we got them.
Yeah, I mean, listen. Most sports cities would trade almost any situation for one championship ring.
Look, it's the laurel that the Green Bay former head coach has been resting on his entire life. Yeah.
He gets to put on his resume forever, Super Bowl winning head coach. It clearly doesn't matter what he does, because this is his second job that I don't think anyone should have given him. Yeah,
or it's like, what were you in Green Bay? 6-10 with one of the best quarterbacks of all time. Yeah, we'll bring you.
Yeah, you're gonna do great here with our mediocre quarterback. This is gonna be wonderful.
You know, I really think you could turn this 500 team to maybe I don't know, 10 wins? No? 4? Sure.
560? We win one more game a year than we did before he got
here. Yeah. And then people will, clamor about how Dak Prescott's the greatest quarterback that ever lived.
Yeah, somehow, what the truth is, Dak Prescott's publicist is really the person who needs to be taking a bow and running a victory lap right here.
Yeah, somehow they've made Dak Prescott the greatest person who ever lived.
All with his Campbell Soups endorsement, and that's it. Like he's not special, stats wise or football wise, and yet people have continued to freak out about him. So Dallas, meanwhile, is in the position where they're going to offer another franchise tag to him. So that takes the salary from 31 guaranteed this year to probably in the 40-ish range. Because if you recall, he was only on a 1-year deal because he signed the franchise tag because he was trying to get some sort of deal done for a 4 or 5 year window, and he couldn't get the money right.
Yeah, because he kept wanting way too much because he thinks he's the greatest of all time because he's on a few Campbell's commercials.
He has gotten advice from counsel that he's the best of all time. Accurate, inaccurate, tough to say, but somebody is definitely telling that boy that he's one of the best of all time. That's for sure.
Look, I mean, all power to you. I too think I'm one of the greatest of all time. But do my stats show otherwise? Yes. If I won more than 500 of my games? Yes.
Right. Yeah, I'd at least want to win my football games if I'm the best of all time. Being 2-4, I guess you go the other way, though. Instead of being just admitting you're 2-4, you're yeah, but I'm in the lead in my division. I'm the best team in my division.
It's yeah, but when your division is made up of literally people who can't win games, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Again, the Patriots didn't even put up signs that they won their division because they always won their division. That was a given. That's what's called being the best.
That is true. When you just assume you won the division.
What are all
Or
those
when you don't even
flags?
celebrate the little things, you're like, if it's not a Super Bowl, we don't even hang the banner, which is fair. Listen, they've won enough that they can pick and choose what they celebrate.
They've won enough Super Bowls that they can.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Texans are still celebrating literally just the anniversary of their creation.
They're like, "Woo, we were made."
Texans Day, woo! Just to continue with the poor choices of Dallas, though, they brought in first-year free agent Andy Dalton, formerly of Cincinnati, to be the backup.
Yeah, Andy Dalton.
Andy Dalton, who has no real track record of success.
Didn't he do like okay 1 year in Cincinnati and then never again?
Cincinnati, I think, had one or two decent seasons. He's actually been in the playoffs a couple of times. The Texans have beat him, I think, 3 times in the playoffs.
Not good math, but I mean, that's better than Dak.
True. And I think that might have even been part of the conversation was like, well, like, you have more success than the guy we have starting, so maybe you can, rub some of that on him or something. Show him a thing or two. Instead, Dak's hurt, and Andy Dalton looks real bad back there.
So it's just not good overall. They said, maybe you can show him a few things. One of them explodes, the other one is bad.
Well,
all right. Well, that didn't work.
I do want to give full credit to the reality. Their center retired this year, and both starting tackles are out. One for the whole season and one for a couple months. So they're playing a lot of new people in new positions. So there is a lot of change in the offensive line, which should be slightly relevant at least. But I don't know how fair it is to be like, oh, well, because they changed the offensive line, obviously we don't expect Andy Dalton to be good. Because, yes, we do.
Yeah, what kind of math is that? Well, you see, boss, you put a lot of new people on this floor, and I don't really vibe with them. So I didn't turn in my reports for the last 3 weeks. It's like, okay, sure, no problem.
We're gonna get you on a team where people like you. It's called the unemployment line.
You're right. Yeah, you're right. My bad. My mistake for trying to hope that you could do your job.
Right, and that's basically what it boils down to. A little bit is like their job is to win, but they don't.